Hi, I'm Larry Puckett, the DCC guy. Well, today we're going to start working on a control panel for the new modules. Now, it's not going to be anything as complex or big as this guy here left over from my old HO scale layout. In fact, it's a bit smaller and more compact, and it'll be this big. So it'll be about, I think, 6 inches this way and 8 inches long, and it's made to fit on the shelf of the new modular layout. So, with that said, let's go ahead and we'll get started working on creating a control panel from this printout that I've made. Hit that little red subscribe button, and when the little bell comes up, click on it and click all. Well, before we get started on the control panel, I thought I would whet your appetite with a little tease here of things to come, because some stuff has come rolling in the last few days. First off, I have the block detectors and signal circuit boards that we'll be using on the layout for setting up signals. So that's something we'll be working on, in another 2 or 3 weeks. And also, my crossing gates came in from the folks at We Honest. And these are really quite nice models of crossing gates. But one of the things that's going to hold me up on this is that the fellow that makes these also is making the crossing gate controller circuit board. So I'll be waiting for that to come in before we can do the crossing gates. Now, something else that just came in today that I'm excited about is this new system from the folks at ESU, the makers of Loke Sound. So this is their new 7-amp DCC system with a wireless throttle. And you can see the throttle right here, and this is the command control system. So everything in one box, you just plug it in and you're ready to run. So we'll be taking a look at that as soon as we get the control panels done. So with that said, let's go ahead and begin with the control panels. Now, in the past, I've always built my control panels like this one here, and that has regular old push buttons to control the tortoise switch machines or switch machines that I used, as well as lit LEDs on the display that show the direction of travel through the various routes here on this control panel. And this is the old control panel from Monroe Yard on my old HO scale layout. Now, the problem with this is it involves a lot of soldering and a lot of wiring, as you can see here. So these are all soldered together. It is just a massive amount of work in order to put one of these together. And the reason I did that is that's, the only thing that was available really for years and years was individual components like this that you had to piece together in order to create a control panel. All of the products that I am using for this project are made by DCC Concepts and are available from them off of their website at dccconcepts.com. Also in the US, ironplanethobbies.com would also have a limited amount of these. So you might want to check there right away if you're excited about doing this before they sell out. Now, if you're concerned about ordering these from the DCC Concepts website in the UK, let me tell you that I recently ordered a locomotive from the UK, partially as a test to see whether or not the tariffs would affect the price. And since the price was under $800, I did not have to pay any tariffs whatsoever in order to have it shipped over here. And it was about $15 to $20 for shipping from the UK. And another viewer here on the channel told me that he bought about $600 worth of DCC Concepts products when he was in the UK recently, and when he brought them through customs in the US, they looked at his receipts and just waved him through. No tariffs at all. And Royal Mail is the cheapest and easiest way to get it shipped to you. So that'll give you some idea of how you can go about obtaining these materials in the US if Iron Planet Hobbies is out of stock. So what I'm going to be using for this build, though, are components available off the shelf that actually require no soldering whatsoever. They have little plugs and sockets so that you can just plug them up, or they have screw terminals here for wiring them out and connecting them together. And we'll go through that later on. Now the components I'm going to be using include this Alpha Switch D, and the D means digital, so I'm going to be using this with a digital command control system. It comes with 12 of the lighted LED push buttons. They also have these nice little metal bezels that fit through holes on your track plan, and they fit right into about a 7mm hole. I ended up purchasing this 7mm diameter punch. Again, right off of Amazon, came right to the front door. So that was pretty easy to get. So you get 12 of the LED push buttons, 12 of the bezels, and you get one of the circuit boards that go with these. If you need extra LEDs of one color or another, they sell extra sets of these. There's 12 of a specific color in the package. So this is a 12-pack of the greens, because I'm going to need more greens than I'm going to need reds. And then they have what's called the Alpha Encoder unit. And the purpose of the AEU is to convert the switch commands into a digital format that can be added to your DCC power bus or accessory bus to control your turnouts. The great thing about these is they have these nifty little switches. So this is a push button switch, and right here in the center of the push button, there's a little LED. So after you push it on and activate your turnout to go one route, that light comes on. If you then have another route that you hit the button, then that light would come on. So it shows you the routes without having a bunch of extra LEDs all over the panel itself. So again, there's no soldering. You just plug this in here like so, and that's all there is for making that connection between the push button and the control board. And we'll get into that in more detail when we start putting the board together. Now these little push buttons, like I said, they have LEDs built into them. They come in red, green, blue, or white LEDs. So you got your choice. If you're a red-green colorblind person or don't want to use red-green, you can use blue and white or red or any combination of those. So it's a pretty nifty design. And as I showed you, they have all of these little connectors that are supplied, so it's all pre-wired for you. All you do is make those nifty connections. So those are all the parts, and what we're going to do first is start by making the overlay. Well, with that brief introduction to what we're going to do and what we're going to use to do it, I want to show you how you go about starting with preparing the overlay for the control panel. Because this is going to sit on top of a piece of hardboard, commonly called masonite. Here in the US, this is most commonly available. In the UK, these push buttons were designed to be used with MDF. And the difference mainly between those is hardboard like this is nice and smooth on one side, and then on the back side, it has this rough surface, as you can see. There's an adhesive surface underneath of this white piece of paper. And that adhesive layer there is available so that you can place the push button in the position that you want it, and it will stick to a nice smooth surface like this. It is not going to stick very well to a rough surface like this one. I'm going to go ahead and assume I can use this hardboard, even though it does have the rough surface here on the back, because I have this on hand, it's the right size, and because it would have taken me about a week or two in order to get 3mm MDF ordered and shipped to me here in Asheville. So we're going to find out how well this is going to work as opposed to using MDF. In order to create this overlay diagram, I started with a new program called Inkscape, and it's freeware. So you can download Inkscape onto your computer. It is available for Windows computers, Macs, and even systems with Linux operating systems. And then I was able to print this out on my color printer. And you can use any type of color printer that you might have that can print out color photos. You can use any other type of drawing program. You don't have to use Inkscape. The great thing about Inkscape is it's free, and it has versions that go quite back in time. For example, I also installed it on my old 20-year-old laptop that has Windows 7 still on it. And what I did here, in order to test everything out, I punched in a few holes. And one thing you really need to do as you're doing this is print out a scrap copy, because you need to take these little push buttons and place them on the diagram to make sure everything's actually going to fit. So I decided I was going to put it together like this. We'll have a red push button here, a green here, and another green out here. So a red will give you the crossover, and then to go straight on these routes, you would push either one of these. So as you can see, these just barely fit together. And that isn't going to work right there because I have to have room for this 1/4 inch thick side piece here. So back to the drawing board. Now I tested all of these different locations and found all kinds of conflicts where they would not fit together. And basically I had started out with a 1/2 inch spacing between the two different straight tracks here. And up here and here, all of these were 1/2 inches. So what I found out was I needed to increase this spacing to 3/4 inch and also to adjust the spacing here. So I moved this in and moved this in and allowed more room on the sides for the sides of my control panel box. Now, let me show you what I came out with in the end. So this is the final version of the track plan. So you can see it's the same thing, but I just changed the various spacing. So you can see this little guy, he's going to fit there without any problem. This one will fit here, and everything's going to fit. I've got a good 1/4 inch on the side, so that's going to be fine. It's going to fit in there. So you have to go through this iterative process to print it out and then check all the spacings. Make sure everything is going to fit in here, particularly on your sides like this. And as you can see, this one right here just barely fits there. Matter of fact, it's probably going to fit better if I turn it and fit it like that. So make sure that you check all of these different locations. Make sure you've got plenty of room in order to fit all of these different components in place. Then we need to do another thing before we start installing any of these. So let me show you that. Now, this right here is a plain piece of photo paper. On this one, this is a piece of photo paper that has been laminated, okay? And what I used for the laminating process was this Avery product. So it's got this heavy vinyl film here on one side and then paper on the other, and it's a nice adhesive there. And here's what it is. I know you're going to want to know. So this is a self-adhesive laminating sheet. You can probably pick this up at Staples. You can probably find it online with Amazon. Any of the stores that sell office supplies would probably have this kind of stuff available for you. And the Avery number on this was 461253-73601. Okay, so those are the numbers in order to identify this. But any type of laminating film like this is going to work. And in that, it's made for laminating documents and things of that nature, and the instructions show you how to do it, so it's on both sides. I only need it on one side because it's going to be glued to a piece of hardboard here. So that would be redundant to actually put it on both sides. So it's a fairly straightforward process of doing this. Let me show you how you do that. So I'm going to take my control panel diagram and lay it out here. And then you can see right here it says peel off here. Okay, so you start peeling this sucker off, like so. And get it started just a little bit. And then I'm going to lay it at this edge right here, like so. And then we're going to start moving whoops, let me see if I can get it here, because you want to grip it. Don't want to allow any creases to form because they're a pain in the neck to get out later on. But you want to just go along slowly, revealing the adhesive, and then moving it forward so that you cover the entire length of the control panel, like so. Now you're going to get some air bubbles. That's not an issue. And then I've got my little roller. You can go to the kitchen and get a rolling pin and get a nice flat smooth surface, like a piece of plywood like I've got here. And then just roll it to get a good tight finish here, as you can see. Okay, then I've got a few air bubbles in here, so I'll show you how I get rid of those. So to get rid of the various air bubbles, I'm just going to take a small pin like this one right here. This is one of those T-pins I use, and then put a couple of holes wherever you've got an air bubble, like so. Oh, there's a small one here, 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 that kind of thing. There's one here, here, and the like. Okay, so, and then just take your fingernail and rub it with your fingernail, and the air will escape out those little pinholes you just made, and your fingernail will press down the surface. So you finally end up with a nice, smooth, laminated cover. Okay, so I got a piece of scrap masonite that I had laying around and have used for other scrap projects, and a metal ruler. And so I'm going to put that right here, like so, and cut on the outside, cut on the white side of your diagram, and get yourself a good, sharp X-Acto knife blade. And then just make a couple of runs through here. Don't try necessarily to do it all in one swipe, because you've got that vinyl coating on there to cut through. Okay, so, and remember, it's not going to come off because it's stuck down at that end. Okay, like I was trying to do. Okay, so we've got a nice sharp line there. Let's turn it around to the other end. Okay, so now, and that gives you a good heavy surface that's not going to be marred very, very easily. So the next step is to use your hole punch to punch that 7mm hole directly over each one of these green or red positions, in my case, where I'm going to be installing these push buttons. And then check those carefully, make sure that you've got it centered over it. Then we're going to give it a good tap or two. And we have our hole for mounting the bezel. So you can see that little bezel just fits right in there and gives it a nice finished appearance. And then the LED push button will be installed so that it sits up like that, although it's not going to sit up that high. So now I'm going to go ahead and start punching a bunch of holes, and I'll be back when I'm done. Okay, I'm back now. I finished punching all of the holes here for the push buttons. And as you can see, I did one last test here to make sure, because this is the tightest grouping that I have here on the whole overlay. So I wanted to make sure those were going to fit, and they do fine. And I checked with my 1/4-inch piece of plywood, and there's no problem on the side there. So I've got plenty of room all around. Everything fits together. So we can take these out. And notice I used the bezels for doing that final test because I wanted to make sure everything was perfectly aligned here. Okay, let's take a look at the next step. Now eventually this is going to be the backboard or the backing for the overlay, and this is going to be attached to it. Now in order to mount the push buttons, we are going to need to drill a hole at each one of these points. And for that, I'm going to be using this 17/64 drill bit. Why 17/64? Well, I took my digital micrometer and I measured the exact diameter of these push buttons and of the bezels, and the 17/64 inch drill bit is the closest thing I have to the measurement I got. It's actually just a little oversized to allow enough room to get everything to fit. Now, before I can drill the 17 holes I need here, I need to mark the locations because I don't want to try drilling through the overlay itself. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mark the location of each one of these holes and then drill the holes separately. And in order to get everything lined up properly when I do that, I've got some blue masking tape here, and I'm going to tape the overlay to the piece of hardboard so that it won't move at all as I'm doing all of these different holes. So let me go ahead and we'll attach it to here. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use some pieces of the blue masking tape. Put a piece of masking tape here and a piece of masking tape down here. Get everything lined up as best I can. And since the overlay is just a little bit oversized, I'll be able to trim that once I get all the holes drilled. Okay, so I'm going to take this tape and run it over here, like so, and pull everything down on this side. Make sure everything's lined up, smooth and square on each corner. And put that one in there. And then just to be sure, I'm going to do the ends as well. Like so. Okay. And we'll get that down. So everything is on here good and tight. Okay. So we got that. And now I'm just going to take a sharp pencil and outline every one of these holes. Okay, so there I've got it all done. Let's take the tape off and see how it looks. Now, to make sure that I got the hole centered, because drill bits tend to wander when you're first starting a hole sometimes, I took a nail punch and tapped it and made a hole through the center of each one of these outlines. And that way, when I start my drill, I'll be able to put the bit right smack dab in the center and it's not going to wander off. At least that's the plan. We'll see how that works out. Okay, I'm going to get started drilling and I'll come back when I'm done. Okay, so that was pretty quick work. Got all the holes drilled, as you can see, and pretty good alignment. Now, what am I going to use for attaching the overlay to the piece of hardboard? Well, I've got my old 3M Super 77 multi-purpose adhesive, and I have used this on all of the control panels that I've ever built. So all I need to do is take this outside, spray a nice even coat of the Super 77, and then we're going to place this guy right back on top. Now, let me show you a secret for how you can get a perfect match. Okay, these are 2 spare tips for my soldering iron. I'm going to put one here in this corner and one over here in this corner, like so. And then once the adhesive is on here, then I can just take the overlay, slide it down over these alignment pins, and push it down. And it's going to be perfectly aligned with all of these holes. So, otherwise you end up with it off center somewhere. I'm going to go outside in the driveway and spray on a layer of the Super 77 adhesive, and I'll be right back here and we'll apply the overlay to the backing board. Okay, as you can see, I've got a nice even coating of the adhesive. Put in my alignment pins here. There we go. And they say to just allow this stuff to dry long enough to where it gets tacky. And then you can apply whatever you're going to put on it. Okay, I'm going to use this, this old piece of t-shirt to press it down because I don't want to take the chance of getting any adhesive that might be on my fingers on here. Okay, let me pull those out now. They're in. And I'll take my roller. These things are indispensable. I've got so many things that I have used these rollers for that they are well worth the small price I paid for them 30-some years ago. So they last a long time, obviously. Okay, so there we got it. And we now have the overlay on the backboard. And let me show you, this is the base for it that I've made. So it's sized so it's going to fit on the shelf, on the module, and then this will be attached directly to that surface there. So we'll have a nice angled control panel right there on the shelf, on the fascia, in the front of the module. There. That's it for today. We've gotten a lot accomplished in this particular video. For next time, what we're going to be doing is installing the bezels and the push buttons, and then wiring up the various circuit boards that go with it. And then hopefully, if everything proceeds as quickly as I think it will, we'll hook it up to the NCE DCC system on the module and give it a test and see if it actually works. So come on back next Friday for part 2 of this demonstration on how to build your own control panels for your model railroad. Until then, have a great weekend and a great week, and I'll see you next Friday. Bye now.